Here's what's coming up tonight on Inside City Hall.
This city's more than 2 million rent-stabilized tenants deserve a rent freeze.
Mayor Mamdani announces 6 appointees to the city's Rent Guidelines Board, bringing him one step closer to delivering on a campaign promise to freeze rents for stabilized tenants. The mayor also announced he will be bringing back homeless encampment sweeps, despite promising to end them on the campaign trail. And we'll take a closer look at a federal lawsuit against the Trump administration over the removal of a pride flag from the Stonewall monument in Manhattan. For the best news, debate, and analysis of New York politics, join us inside City Hall. Good evening. Welcome to Inside City Hall for Wednesday, February 18th, 2026. I'm Errol Lewis. Mayor Mamdani was once a critic of homeless encampment sweeps, but now he is bringing them back after his administration was scrutinized for its response to a cold snap that left 20 people dead. Our Dan Rivoli has more in tonight's top story. Good evening, Dan.
Good evening, Errol. So this change was first reported in the New York Post. So Mayor Mamdani addressed at the groundbreaking of an affordable housing project. And while homeless advocates criticized the decision to bring these homeless sweeps back as Mamdani breaking a campaign promise, Mamdani says he can do things differently and actually make sure that those people living in encampments will finally have the access to shelters and homes they need.
I think that we can address encampments and get people into a better alternative than leaving them in the streets.
Shams DeBaron has been there, homeless. He said a chance to stay in a dangerous shelter does little to get someone off the street.
That's not going to work. What we have to do is really look at what is a better alternative for that population.
For Mayor Mamdani, encampments will no longer be that better alternative. He is reinstituting the policy of removing tents and makeshift shelters on the street, a practice he vowed to stop before he took office. During the frigid cold, at least 20 people were found dead outdoors. Administration officials say none of them were living in encampments. Under the modified policy, the Department of Homeless Services, not the NYPD, is the lead authority.
That is something that I believe will yield far better results because it hasn't even been the driving directive of these policies before.
Mamdani discussed the policy at a groundbreaking for an affordable housing development in East Harlem. The change characterized as a broken campaign promise from homeless advocates who opposed the sweeps. Brad Hoylman-Siegel, the Manhattan Borough president, backed it.
I think it's sensible. I don't think anyone, certainly any New Yorker with a heart, wants to see someone suffering on the street.
Mamdani also discussed his 6 new appointments to the Rent Guidelines Board, the body that will determine whether rents in stabilized units should increase or stay the same. It could pave the way for the mayor to fulfill a key campaign promise.
So I continue to believe that this city's more than 2 million rent-stabilized tenants deserve a rent freeze.
At the same time, Mamdani said he wants to cut landlords' costs, even as he threatens to raise property taxes to balance the city's budget.
Of course, I also understand that the RGB is an independent board, and they will consider all of the evidence.
A recognition that a rent freeze is not up to him. And while Mayor Mamdani was on the topic of getting homeless men and women into housing, that groundbreaking was for Timbali Terrace in East Harlem. That will be fully affordable with 341 apartments, including nearly 100 apartments for people who are formerly homeless. And then it also includes on-site social services as well. Errol.
Very exciting project. When it comes to this question of the encampments, there's a fundamental difference between having the cops do it, right? Like leaving a notice and saying you have 7 days and then coming back 7 days later and removing them, and what the mayor is proposing now, right?
That's right. This will be the Department of Homeless Services making the initial outreach, making the determination that this is an encampment and the determination that the encampment must be removed. And one difference, Mayor Mamdani says, is that the Department of Homeless Services will then be continuing to do outreach each day from the first contact up until the 7th day when the determination is made that DSNY, the Sanitation Department, and NYPD have to remove these tents and makeshift shelters.
I think the mayor may have been talking with his lawyers, but he was very careful at the press conference today in talking about the Rent Guidelines Board members that he's appointing to say They're independent. They're going to make their own judgment, but I trust them to do the right thing and freeze the rent.
And that's the law. That's the rule. That's what the city charter says, that this board has to look at the data, has to look at the evidence to see, do landlords deserve a increase or should the rents stay flat? And Mamdani really can't strong arm them because it might open him up to a lawsuit and then have this whole campaign promise of freezing the rent blow up in his face. That being said, the people he did pick do seem to align with him and his sensibilities politically. They come from community development and workforce development, affordable housing, and those areas that Mamdani and his supporters came out of in their time in government. So they might align with him ideologically. We'll see if they actually make the decision looking at the evidence that the rents should be frozen in these stabilized units.
I should mention the project by Belongo. I'm on the board of directors of this organization. We've been working on this thing for years to get this housing built. One of the things the mayor talked about was streamlining the process so that it doesn't take what's almost a decade of planning to get this kind of a project off the ground.
And I think that was some of the commentary a lot of the elected officials make, that this takes years, almost a decade. There was the rezoning in East Harlem. Could be contentious when you rezone, but this is what the development is meant to do. They took a city-owned parking lot and turned it into hundreds of affordable units. And so this is what a rezoning can do. It might be a tough fight to get it actually passed, but these are the benefits.
All right. Thanks very much, Stan. Meanwhile, the mayor is facing pushback from the city council over his pitch to raise property taxes in order to close the city's $5.4 billion budget gap. City Council Speaker Julie Menin says she is opposed to the plan and wants to find other ways for the city to save money. Our Courtney Gross joins me now with some of the details. Good evening, Courtney.
Yeah, Errol, not altogether that surprising, considering a 9.5% property tax hike is most likely not going to be popular. And that criticism was widespread today, including from the City Council and its new leader, City Council Speaker Julie Menin. The City Council, of course, plays an incredibly crucial role when it comes to the city's budget and this property tax increase. They will have the final say when the budget is due at the end of June. We caught up with the City Council Speaker today at an unrelated event in Queens, and here's what she had to say. Property taxes are off the table.
I think there are other options on the table. First of all, we have made clear that we are opposed to any kind of property tax increase. We believe that needs to be off the table. The governor has made clear that she is not raising taxes. So with that said, we think we need to really focus on savings. This is an opportunity for the council to really lead in terms of savings.
Now, the mayor says that the budget gap the city is now facing is about $5.4 billion, and the City Council will propose its own plan. They will have a budget response in the coming weeks, and the City Council Speaker said they're going to be looking at cost-saving measures, including no-bid contracts, some health care savings. It's unclear how they will get to that $5.4 billion figure. Next was the new city comptroller, Mark Levine, who was on Mornings on One this morning and also had some sharp words for the new proposal.
I happen to think that a property tax would be a very big mistake. It's an unequal system that actually has a heavier burden on working class homeowners in communities of color.
Now, Mayor Mamdani is playing defense, saying that this is really just a last-ditch attempt proposal if he doesn't get his millionaire's tax from Albany, and he said that today at a press conference.
So what we put forward was what we characterized as actions of last resort. I described them as last resort because we have a broken property tax system in this city. We have one that can barely stand up in court. And my goal is to reform that system, to work with partners in state government.
And he does say that he wants to reform the city's very complicated, complex, and controversial property tax system, but we have yet to see a piece of legislation. Those reforms would obviously have to go to Albany. So one other thing, Errol, that he wants to ask for from Albany, and he's expending a lot of political capital as of this point with all of these proposals and requests.
There are designated officials in every agency that are supposed to be looking for savings. When are we going to hear from them about how much they think collectively they can cut?
So those savings are due in a couple of weeks. I believe the date the mayor said was March 20th, and they're tasked with a certain percentage in this fiscal year and a 2.5% for the following fiscal year, which is fiscal year 27. Going back budgets that we've covered for many, many years. I mean, I can recall Bill de Blasio or Mike Bloomberg calling for larger, what we call PEGs, programs to eliminate the gap is the technical term for these types of savings, 5%, 7%. So this is not going to close the gap. They don't want to get to the bone by these 2.5% cuts. They really just want to raise revenue to pay for all the stuff that they want.
Yeah, when it comes to raising revenue, I mean, so many of us just around the newsroom live in different boroughs, and we sort of compare notes from time to time on what property taxes look like. And there really is no rhyme or reason. I mean, there are wild differences between what people are paying, and it almost seems unrelated to the actual value of the home.
And people have looked at this system, which dates back to 1980, for many years, many times. In fact, de Blasio created a property tax commission, reform commission, which was formed with then City Council Speaker Corey Johnson. They had this big commission that over the course of about multiple years, I'm thinking it was delayed because of the pandemic. They came out with a final report in 2021 at the end of his tenure for potential fixes to this very complicated system. It's been said, Eric Adams said he was going to fix it too. Mayor Mamdani says he's going to fix it, but it takes a lot because the system is so complicated. You're going to have certain assessments, certain caps on assessments, depending on what type of property it is. And to be honest, there's such a patchwork of laws and systems since the 1980s that it doesn't really make sense.
Well, the city is so reliant on the revenue, as we now know, that no administration, although everybody thinks it should be fixed, wants to open that Pandora's box or wants to touch it.
The vast majority of our city budget, which is, you know, $127 billion now, is because of property tax revenue.
Okay, thanks very much, Courtney. We are going to take a short break now. When we come back, we'll bring you the details about a case where a former NYPD inspector is accused of taking bribes from a tech company that was hoping to to install panic buttons, that is, in city schools. Stay with us.
Every day tells a new story. At Mornings on One, we're dedicated to bringing you the stories that matter most to start your day. With in-depth coverage of the day's news.
I'm Pat Kernan. Here are the stories we're following.
And weather updates every 10 minutes.
Tomorrow, some morning sunshine possible. Clouds take over.
It's our responsibility to get you the information you need before you head out the door. Mornings on One. Weekdays starting at 6 on the Spectrum News app. Free for Spectrum and Xfinity customers.
When you're connected with Spectrum, you get 5G and fiber-powered internet combined for the fastest wireless speeds. So you can sweat for the right reasons. It's only the seamless connection you love at home, everywhere you go. It's only everything.
I'm Sandra, this is Jorge, and we were adopted in 2019. I remember when they first came to us, Michael was already a teenager. The whole cliche of they're so lucky to have you guys, and it's the other way around. They have changed our family for the better. They chose to love us. They didn't have to. They chose us. Family.
Learn about adopting a teen from foster care. You can't imagine the reward. Visit adoptuskids.org.
And that's a look at some of what's in the papers this morning. You've done at the sports section.
Today's story is about the latest chapter for a beloved local business.
It's a beautiful day with temperatures in the 60s, but showers are expected in the next hour.
In a city that's always on the go, it's important to stop to hear the stories that connect us.
The news that matters to New Yorkers. That's what brings us together. That's Mornings on One.
Weekdays starting at 6.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall. A former NYPD inspector is now facing up to 20 years in prison. Kevin Taylor is accused of accepting bribes from a tech company hoping to install panic buttons in New York City public schools. Our Ayanna Harry joins me now with a closer look at the case. Good evening, Ayanna.
Good evening, Errol. He was entrusted with protecting New York City public school students, but federal prosecutors say he lined his own pockets while touting life-saving technology. Kevin Taylor went from high-ranking official within the NYPD under the Adams administration to now fighting a federal bribery case.
Hello, everyone. I'm Inspector Kevin Taylor.
He rose through the ranks to lead the NYPD School Safety Division. In that role, former Inspector Kevin Taylor became an active, vocal advocate, calling on the city to require panic alarms in public school buildings. And in local news interviews,
should schools have silent panic alarms?
Yes. The answer is yes.
Taylor even gave a demo on live TV of a pilot program for school panic buttons using technology from a Florida company, Safer Watch.
Oh, I gave you guys a little sneak peek.
Prosecutors claim Taylor tried to steer an $11 million contract to install panic buttons in city schools to Safer Watch, and in exchange, Taylor solicited and accepted bribes from the company's CEO worth tens of thousands of dollars, including cash payments made on multiple occasions, airfare, and luxury hotel lodging, which Taylor used to vacation in Las Vegas, Nevada, and the Bahamas. According to a recently unsealed indictment, Taylor issued a memo recommending the NYPD contract with Safer Watch and even testified before the city council in 2023, praising the Safer Watch pilot.
This truly is a game changer for us here in New York City, even if it's only in that pilot program at this time.
Despite Taylor's efforts on behalf of Safer Watch, in October of 2025, then Mayor Eric Adams announced a new pilot program with a different company to place 911 panic buttons in city schools.
Our emergency alert system can be activated from multiple fixed buttons.
U.S. attorneys charged Taylor with wire fraud and bribery. He pleaded not guilty in federal court. Taylor's attorney did not return New York One's request for comment. The former inspector's arrest comes as Police Commissioner Jessica Tisch now works to restore public trust in the department after several high-profile scandals during the Adams administration. Tisch saying during her State of the NYPD address earlier this month,
it meant making difficult personnel decisions, confronting practices that had gone unexamined for too long.
Also, the indictment, Taylor is accused of threatening to pull a bulletproof vest contract from a company unless that company paid him $75,000. Again, Kevin Taylor has pleaded not guilty to all of the allegations in this indictment, Darryl.
I mean, one of the markers of a problem here is, $11 million for panic buttons. Do we need them? Have they been used? Did it make any sense in the first place?
Well, part of the challenge is that, as we saw in the city council hearing, which, by the way, that hearing lasted about 5 hours, it was on several public safety issues, but the council members seem to really be relying on Taylor and his expert testimony as an NYPD inspector to provide that insight as to how the pilot was going so far and whether or not these were actually needed within the schools.
Yeah, and I mean, and even the bulletproof vests, they were going to get bulletproof vests for every school safety agent, including the ones who work in, kindergarten.
Yeah, and so this actually was rolled out in the city back in 2024. So currently, school safety agents are wearing bulletproof vests, but they're wearing them underneath their uniforms, so it's not as visible as if they were out officers patrolling on the streets. So this is something that did start also as a pilot program. It was deemed successful and then rolled out throughout the city.
And how do we know anything about how or why they began to look at this individual and then ended up indicting him?
Yeah, so what we understand is that this was part of a larger probe into corruption and wrongdoing within the Eric Adams administration. And so one of the things that investigators found during their probe of everything was, Kevin Taylor, his messages with the CEO of Safer Watch. And I will also mention the CEO of Safer Watch has also been indicted in this case. He's currently in Florida. He has not yet been arraigned, but I did reach out to his attorney, and his attorney denied wrongdoing in this case.
Okay, thanks very much, Ayanna. It is time now for a break. When we come back, we'll bring you the details of a lawsuit against the Trump administration's decision to remove a pride flag from the Stonewall National Monument. Stay with us.
Stand clear of the closing doors, please.
There's nothing quite like the feeling of going to the theater. Onstage celebrates that excitement every week by taking you behind the scenes with the latest news and in-depth interviews of the hottest shows on and off Broadway. So grab a seat, because this is a show you won't want to miss. Join us every Saturday and Sunday at 7:30 p.m. for Onstage.
Onstage is presented by your Tri-State Cadillac dealers. Discover which Cadillac is right for you and elevate your journey.
It's only a hike. It's only made possible by Spectrum Business connecting healthcare providers of all sizes. Like hospitals relying on the Spectrum Fiber broadband network with industry-leading reliability. Practices keeping patient data safe with advanced security. Pharmacies accessing records in the cloud without fail. It's tailored connectivity solutions built for life-changing moments. It's only a hike. It's only everything. Spectrum Business.
Mom was always organized, but she started forgetting to pay her bills on time. And she'd buy the same gifts over and over.
Telling the girls about my Alzheimer's diagnosis was really hard.
At first, we had our cries, but then we were like, okay, let's make a plan.
Early detection gave us time to adapt together.
It's so important for you to think about what you can do and making the most of what you have.
If you or your family are noticing changes, it could be Alzheimer's. Talk about seeing a doctor together.
From my time growing up in Queens watching New York 1 to my time reporting here, I've seen how quickly a story can change. At News All Day, we bring you the news as it's happening, from around the boroughs to local government to your neighborhood, because our city never stops moving.
Hi, I'm Shannon Ferry with the day's developing stories. But first,
stay up to date and informed with News All Day, weekdays from noon to 4.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall. From the pride flag at the Stonewall National Monument in New York to an exhibit about slavery in Philadelphia, the Trump administration is removing some signs and symbols from national park sites following a presidential order to, quote, restore truth and sanity to American history. But some activists are pushing back and have filed a legal challenge in federal court. Our Shannon Ryan has been tracking all of this from Washington, D.C. and joins me now with the details. And Shannon, I understand you spoke with one of the groups that filed this lawsuit. It's an organization made up of national park rangers?
Yes, rangers, both current and former. And as you can imagine, this is really, really emotional for them, Errol. To put it in their words, they believe that the Trump administration is working to erase history that they've dedicated their life's work to preserving. Working for passion on modest pay.
We used to joke that we get paid in sunsets.
Bill Wade, a second-generation National Park Service employee, has dedicated his life to the preservation of America's parks and past.
And that does include telling the stories, even when maybe they are about something that today we're not very proud of.
But now Wade feels the evidence of history that he fought so hard to protect is being wiped away by the Trump administration.
It is deeply emotional. It's gut-wrenching to see what's happening.
Which is why Wade says his organization, the Association of National Park Rangers, is joining forces with other advocacy groups suing the administration, alleging it is erasing, quote, history and science in national parks.
It's been very disturbing to me and most of the people that I know.
The accusations come after President Donald Trump issued an executive order last spring, calling to, quote, restore truth and sanity in American history.
We will teach our children to love our country, to honor our history.
The order said that action would be taken to ensure national sites do not, quote, inappropriately disparage Americans past or living. Since its issuance, Wade says at least 24 sites have been targeted with what he calls censorship. Recently, placards about slavery were dismantled from an exhibit in Philadelphia. And the pride flag was removed from Greenwich Village's Stonewall Monument, a site hailed as the birthplace of the modern gay rights movement, prompting another lawsuit earlier this week.
They knew right where to go, right to the heart of what we consider sacred as a gay community. They came right for us.
They stole the flag in an attempt to steal our pride, in an attempt to steal our history. We are not going to stand for that.
No, Errol, one of the things that I found really interesting about this is Wade says that his group, the Association of National Park Rangers, has historically viewed itself as an educational, not advocacy organization. They've been around since 1977, and in that time, he says they've only been involved in one other lawsuit, so that tells you a lot about how strong their emotions are here.
And Shannon, that gentleman is a former ranger. Are current rangers also involved? I would imagine they might be at risk of suffering some kind of retaliation.
Errol, that is certainly a concern. So the group has about 800 members, and just under half of them are current park rangers. Now, I'm told historically they have not published a list of their members. However, they've always put the names, the photographs of leadership up online. I'm told they've since wiped that over concerns about retaliation.
All right, great reporting. Thanks very much, Shannon. President Donald Trump will deliver his annual State of the Union speech next Tuesday night, but many Democratic lawmakers say they plan to avoid the annual ritual, choosing instead to take part in some counter-programming on the National Mall. Our national reporter, Evan Kozlov, has the details in this report.
It's one of the most high-profile moments for any president. The annual State of the Union address gives the president a national audience to tout their accomplishments and outline the path forward. But when President Donald Trump makes his appearance next Tuesday, many Democrats say they plan to boycott it, attending an alternative rally instead. The so-called People's State of the Union, organized by left-wing advocacy groups, will take place on the National Mall on the same night. Organizers calling it counter-programming to the president's, quote, night full of lies and misplaced priorities. The event's organizers list at least 5 senators and 7 members of Congress who plan to attend. That includes Maryland Senator Chris Van Hollen, who wrote on Wednesday, Trump is marching America towards fascism, and I refuse to normalize his shredding of our Constitution and democracy. This cannot be business as usual. A White House spokesperson dismissing the protest in a statement to Spectrum News, writing it's not a surprise that they refuse to celebrate and honor Americans who have benefited from the common sense policies Republicans have governed with.
The State of the Union is falling apart.
The top House Democrat, Hakeem Jeffries, says he plans to be there.
He's coming to our house. It's my view that you don't let anyone ever run you off of your block.
Protests are nothing new at State of the Unions. In 2020, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, a Democrat, famously ripped a copy of the president's speech in 2. And in 2025, Texas Congressman Al Green briefly disrupted the president's speech.
Remove this gentleman from the chamber.
When he refused to stop yelling, he was ejected from the House floor. Other lawmakers protested in more quiet ways, holding signs and wearing pink to show their opposition. And it appears that Democratic leadership wants to avoid some of the loud disruptions we had last year. Congressman Jeffries saying that Democrats should choose between skipping the event or attending in, quote, silent defiance. Reporting here on Capitol Hill, I'm Evan Kozlov, Spectrum News.
It is time now for a break. Coming up, we'll talk more about the city's budget and the mayor's new appointments to the Rent Guidelines Board with my weekly politics panel. Stay with us.
My time at New York One has shown me that in the city that never sleeps, the news never stops. So as the day winds down, turn to the rush hour.
Good afternoon, I'm Monica Burke.
To catch up on the stories that matter across the 5 boroughs, with in-depth interviews from the city's newsmakers, plus the latest forecast. Catching you up with today, preparing you for tomorrow.
It's only a slice. It's only made possible by Spectrum, connecting businesses of all sizes, like small businesses, instantly serving up orders and inventory on the Spectrum Fiber broadband network. And factories, seamlessly connecting to farmers in the field with tailored solutions that always deliver. It's only a slice. It's only everything. Get your business free fiber-powered internet forever. Call to find out how.
I'm Chris Jakovic. I served in the United States Air Force and I deployed 3 times. So in 2017, I was serving as an Air Force First Sergeant. Our motto in that role is my job is people, everyone is my business. But unfortunately in that year, I would lose my own brother, Lance Corporal Adam Jakovic, to suicide. The majority of veteran suicides are from guns. I store my weapons securely, not only for myself, but for my family. My service never stops.
At Spectrum Noticias, we recognize that our New York City community is vibrant and diverse.
Spectrum Noticias delivers balanced coverage of the stories that matter in our communities and across the country.
Our journalists are based in the neighborhoods we cover, ensuring you get in-depth reporting on what's happening in the places we call home.
So join us at Spectrum Noticias. We're always on, always there for you.
Now available on your TV. Check your local listings. Also available on the Spectrum News app.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall. Mayor Mamdani unveiled his $127 billion preliminary budget proposal in which he says a 9.5% property tax rate increase is necessary to fill the city's budget shortfall at $5.4 billion. The mayor says that the property tax hike will only be needed if the governor refuses to raise taxes on big corporations and New York's wealthiest earners. Joining me now to talk about the politics of all of that and more is my politics panel. Alyssa Katz is editor-in-chief of The Forward, and joining us, as he does every week, is New York One political commentator Herson Barrero. Thank you both for being here. Is this a variation on the traditional budget dance? And what happens in past years, for those who don't know, my viewers, is that the mayor steps forward and says, you know, unfortunately, we have a budget gap. I'm going to have to close libraries, firehouses, senior centers, and other popular items. And then somehow it all gets resolved by June 1st. Is that what we're doing here?
Not at all. This is kind of unprecedented, and certainly as long as I've been following New York politics, that you essentially have Mamdani. This is going to sound slightly exaggerated, but it's almost a hostage taking of New York City property owners. And you give them this stiff tax increase at a time where people are economically challenged, but unless Governor Hochul and the state legislature can pass a tax increase that I want on the super wealthy, which of course was a campaign pledge and was also something that he really rallied a lot of voters around. So it's a very daring move and completely unprecedented certainly in recent history.
And everybody seems to be upset about it.
Well, if you're a homeowner and you're really struggling, especially, and I'm talking about the high price. I just spoke to a person who lives in Manhattan and revealed to me that she pays $128,000 in property taxes. This is a luxurious place. So she's gonna feel it. And you have another person from Queens that I know, modest home and all of that, and they were trying to figure this out. I said, well, why figure it out? It's not gonna go through. He said, oh, you never know, times are so crazy. So he's put the fear of God into them, and I don't think that's a wise choice in 49 days to be doing to the people of New York. They're trying to learn who this rookie is, and obviously he's never had to pay a mortgage or pay taxes on a home, and that goes to my whole concern of his inexperience and his immaturity. And at the age he's at, I think he's smart as a politician. And he still thinks that he's on a campaign. And then you threaten the governor when she's up for re-election. Yeah. Are you crazy? Are you crazy?
Yeah, and I think one of the factors here as well is that Mamdani knows that New York City's property tax system is regressive, and this is well known and established through a lot of research and litigated in court, that particularly working class and predominantly minority areas in the outer boroughs are that they are paying more in taxes, like vastly more than parts of the city that are much more prosperous. Most famously, Park Slope, Bill de Blasio paid much lower taxes than someone, let's say, in Jamaica, Queens. And so to propose this regressive tax increase, knowing that, I think is especially kind of striking.
Now, not to say that he's going to be able to thread this needle, but he certainly made some noises at the press conference today about possibly reforming the tax system, even as he wants to use it in order to raise revenue.
Right, but he can't, he knows very well he cannot reform it on his own. He needs a state legislature to do that. So look, this could be some four-dimensional chess to get property tax reform through a state legislature, which hasn't happened under prior mayors. That would be a very positive outcome, but that's not what we're talking about in the heat of the budget process.
Well, you just mentioned the whole process with the legislature. He's coming from the legislature. He can't have a relationship with them. He was up there. Did he talk to them? He's not only embarrassing the governor, he's embarrassing his ex-colleagues also, because they're not going to go along with this. They're not, especially the ones from the boroughs, the 5 boroughs which he represents. I just don't know the rational way that he's going to, and this is a guy who lives in public housing. How much are you paying for rent? Come on now.
Well, right. It's only a matter of time before that would come up, because as you mentioned before, as a renter and now living in Gracie Mansion, he has never received a property tax bill from the city of New York, like the rest of us.
How dare you?
Every year, in fact, as homeowners know who are watching, you get a nice little letter from the city of New York. Congratulations, your house is worth more. The tax bill to follow, right? And the tax bill only goes in one direction. It never goes down.
That's right. And I think the interesting factor here are the potential repercussions. I mean, we talked about Hochul already, but you also have city council members with whom Mamdani is going to have to negotiate the budget. And property owners in many of those districts have an outside voice because they're more likely to vote. So Mamdani comes from a district that where, these renters were really a big part of his base and a part of who big part of who he turned out to vote for him with his promise to freeze the rent. But those council members are going to be pushing back, and it's not just going to be Vicky Palladino in Queens. It's going to be a lot of
the speaker. Julie Manning already came out. She even went on ABC, which I mean, that's the toilet of talk radio.
Well, right.
And she, it's like, why did she?
And look, co-ops are part of the property tax system, and they are especially unfairly treated compared with rentals. It really is a mess.
But she's come out against it.
Let's switch topics. The mayor said that he's made 6 new appointments to the Rent Guidelines Board. This looks like a layup. I mean, property taxes is hard. 6 appointees who he pretty publicly said, I understand you're independent, but I hope you'll reach the right conclusion.
Yeah, I looked over the list, and I have to say, it was I suppose there is some precedent for this under de Blasio, but like when the landlord representative is from a nonprofit subsidized housing group, it gives you an idea of how exactly he's stacking the deck. And of course he's going to. It's his power. No one else has any say over the appointments. So I think we can be confident that they will reach a rent freeze in June when they take the final vote on the Rent Guidelines Board. The question is, of course, so many have been asking over the last couple of days is, how do you propose a tax increase and a rent freeze where, I mean, maybe some landlords can afford to, but lots of analyses show that there's a significant, including the Rent Guidelines Board's own staff reports show that a significant portion of landlords can't make the numbers work. And then what do we do about it? Unclear.
I think this is where his youth, inexperience, and I don't mean to keep harping on this, but this is where the rookie really shows that he doesn't know what he's talking about. Because he doesn't connect one thing with the other in a city that is $1 trillion business a year. There's trillions of dollars negotiated here, never mind the budget, the $127 billion. There's income that comes in, there's international business that comes in. I mean, you just got to be able to connect the dots and have an understanding. By the way, I'm going to say it now, Financial Control Board has to be explored. I saw people already, Bill Cunningham, remember he started talking about it. Bill, if you got some ideas, there's also other people that I've talked to off the record. They got to really look at this because I don't think this rookie knows what he's doing.
If I can just jump on that, I think what you see here, and you said this before when you said he's acting like he's still campaigning. Mamdani leads on the moral high ground, and that's it. And de Blasio did that too, but de Blasio also had an aspect of transactional politics. He kind of looked very seriously at the budget. Now Mamdani, I think, is looking at the budget, but he is just consistently going for one move, and that is to say, well, the rent freeze is the right thing to do, or policy X, free buses, all the policies that are going to be putting pressure on the city budget, the child care and so on. That I think yes, they are the right thing to do. But you see him leading from that high ground. At the same time, that budget realities are kicking in, so that, for example, they're going to be going to the war with the city council, over this legislation about rent vouchers that the city cannot afford. Right? Mamdani said, well, we're not going to go that far. So he knows that he has to draw the line somewhere, but at the same time, he needs to always have that moral high ground and never lose it.
It's a real interesting point that if you get the rent, the property tax increase, it then becomes one of the factors that the Rent Guidelines Board by law must consider.
That's correct.
And then it's very hard to say at the same time, well, we have this 9.5% tax increase, but we're not going to let you have a rent
They've done it many times before. De Blasio got 2 rent freezes under those terms.
See. All right, let's take a short break. We've got more to talk about with this panel. We'll do that in 2 minutes. Stay with us.
After 30 years of forecasting for New York, I've learned it takes a dedicated team to cover all the weather our city has to offer. As chief meteorologist at New York One, I'm honored to be able to help New Yorkers plan their day.
Morning, noon, or night, our team is here to bring you accurate forecasts you can count on, from severe weather updates to our Weather on the Ones. Watch the New York One weather experts with your Weather on the Ones on your TV and on the go with the Spectrum News app.
I moved from Dallas to Los Angeles all by myself. The order of things I wanted to set up was internet, water, then power. I needed to take a shower, but I really did need the internet for work and to watch my shows. That's kind of a crazy thing to admit in front of a camera. Pretend I didn't say that. I got to Spectrum. I was so relieved that I was getting the best bang for my buck. It was a huge weight taken off of my shoulders.
Real customers, real savings. To see how much you can save, visit spectrum.com/save.
I'm an ex-drug dealer, and I'll be your sub today. Two milligrams of fentanyl can be lethal. A lethal dose is in here. Who gets it, I won't know.
It's cheap, it's potent, and it's profitable.
The sad reality is fentanyl is being mixed into everything now.
More kitchen now.
My father was a New York City firefighter. My mission, like his, is to serve New Yorkers in a city that doesn't stop when the sun goes down. Being with New York One since the beginning, I'm now honored to join you even earlier each weeknight. Starting at 8 with New York Tonight, we'll explore the latest news developments, followed by New York One at 10 to wrap up your day. So join me each weeknight starting at 8 right here on New York One.
Our father is a man who dedicated his life to public service, to gain, protect, and defend civil rights and human rights, to make our nation better, to make the world more just, our people better neighbors with each other.
We are back inside City Hall, and I'm once again joined by my politics panel, Alyssa Katz and Herson Barrero. Reverend Jesse Jackson, of course, a frequent guest on this program, was a giant of American politics. Among other things, he was the first black candidate to get on the ballot for president in all 50 states. What should viewers, especially our younger viewers, take away from his life and legacy, do you think?
The 1988 election, I know you're not going to believe this, there was only 11 Puerto Rican elected officials in New York State. For the first and only time, they endorsed the candidacy of Reverend Jesse Jackson. That was the only time that they've come together, no other time. And they did it in such a way that it made the governor of Puerto Rico, Rafael Hernandez, at that point, go with Dukakis, and he got creamed. Secretary of the Department of Puerto Rican Affairs was Nidia Velazquez at that point, working with Andres Colon. He got clobbered, and that's a result of that, Somos started. He invited them to Puerto Rico, first year, second year, and then they said, well, we could convene here every year. That's how Somos started. The other thing I want to mention, when the bombing of Vieques went on, and this is under the Bush administration, the nice Bush, the second Bush, that we thought it was a goof, it was Reverend Jackson who showed up on Vieques. He didn't get arrested because he had other commitments, but that's when Reverend Sharpton went and got her. By the way, Reverend Sharpton did the most time in a federal prison for the cause of Vieques. That's why Puerto Ricans and blacks, to a certain extent, people don't understand it, and people will never understand it again. And there were people arrested, Jose Rivera, Roberto Ramirez, who was also in prison, federal prison. So the connection with us Puerto Ricans is a very strong one. And again, 11 Puerto Rican officials to get together and endorse one candidate, it never been seen.
Right, haven't seen it since.
So 1988 was my first vote in a presidential election, and since I went to the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor, my first vote was cast for Jesse Jackson, and he won.
He won the Michigan
caucuses. Which was wonderful. That was
that.
the only state that he won the caucuses or primaries in, and it was incredible. It was such a moment, and I was reminiscing with friends of mine who had been organizing for like Paul Simon, or, you know, and when they realized Jackson's running and had some energy in Michigan, they jumped ship and went to Jackson. It was really a wonderful, wonderful moment. of course, as editor of the Forward, I am duty-bound to note the Hymietown incident, right? Where he was, and it was not a comment he had made publicly, but it became known that he'd referred to Jews in New York and New York City as Hymietown. And it was a moment, I think, of great kind of shock and reckoning, and kind of given the sort of, you're talking about the relationships between communities, also because of his connections to Louis Farrakhan, and a lot of sort of sense that he was friendly to people with anti-Semitic views. It's like he was somebody who, for a period of time, this incident was kind of almost like a wedge between the communities, and something that created and cultivated a lot of distrust. But I really do feel like Jackson, over time, made extraneous efforts to rebuild those ties, and I think really prevailed. And you have a lot of Jewish community leaders now who are really felt that he had overcome that moment and really had proved a community friend. So it's a hard time.
Such an extraordinary figure. He's the Chicago leader of Dr. King's organization in his 20s. I think he was 24 years old. And starts this entire national movement, carries the movement forward, has his presidential, I mean, in one part of the legacy, which people should, it's talked about in vague terms, but I want my viewers to hear this precisely. Before Jackson, DNC rules required candidates to get 20 to 30% of the vote in a congressional or a legislative district and statewide in order to qualify for any delegates. He wins 1,000 delegates when he's running for president, but there were these winner-take-all states. Anyway, he got the rules changed so that if you get at least 15% of a state's overall vote, you get some delegates. And that's what made it possible for other kinds of candidates, Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, to actually run and to win.
David Dinkins in '89 after '88 election, and remember, Bill Lynch was involved. Bill Lynch, Dennis Rivera, and there was a point Dennis Rivera used to go, Angelo Falcone used to sit down and come after the briefings, and sometimes Bill Lynch would join in just to shoot and give some material from the research Angelo Falcone did. But one thing I will always remember was how Dennis Rivera told us the bulletproof. It wasn't a vest. It was a whole thing that Jesse Jackson, and he could hardly walk. So the death threats against him in '88, because of different reasons, were incredible. So this is a very valiant, courageous person. He was flawed like everyone else. None of us are perfect. And he says things, or he said things that attributed to him. By the way, he and Barack Obama didn't get along. Remember that?
No, that is exactly right.
You know,
exactly. He was frozen out of that White House.
We're not perfect.
He's a very interesting guy. He spent a lot of time here, very generous with his time on and off camera. I learned a lot from him. Thanks very much, Alyssa Katz. Great to see you. Good to see you, Gerson Barrero. We are going to take a short break now. When we come back, I'll be joined in studio by public advocate Jumaane Williams. We're going to talk about Mayor Mamdani's last resort proposal to raise property taxes if the governor does not increase taxes on wealthy New Yorkers and corporations. Stay with us.
We have so many ways to stay connected. A single touch can bring us closer to the families we love, the friends we know, and the city we share. And Spectrum helps us keep connected throughout the day, every day. Including more ways to watch New York One as a Spectrum Internet customer. Watch Spectrum News New York One on the Spectrum News app, available on all your favorite devices.
There's an international travel plan with Spectrum that was an additional $10 a month, as opposed to paying a ridiculous amount per day for roaming fees. This literally felt like my old phone carrier was reaching their hand into my wallet and just helping themselves to some of my cash. I like having no surprises when it comes to my cell phone bill. And with Spectrum, that's been the case. So it saved me a ton of money.
Real customers, real savings. To see how much you can save, visit spectrum.com/save.
Every day tells a new story. At Mornings on One, we're dedicated to bringing you the stories that matter most to start your day with in-depth coverage of the day's news.
I'm Pat Kernan. Here are the stories we're following.
And weather updates every 10 minutes.
Tomorrow, some morning sunshine possible. Clouds take over.
It's our responsibility to get you the information you need before you head out the door. Mornings on One. Weekdays starting at 6 on the Spectrum News app. Free for Spectrum and Xfinity customers.
Stand clear of the closing doors, please.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall. Mayor Mamdani is facing pushback from supporters and critics alike after pitching what the mayor called a last resort option to balance the city's budget by raising property taxes. The mayor's critics say that he is reversing a campaign promise to make the boroughs more affordable. But City Hall maintains that a tax hike is not guaranteed and would only happen if Governor Hochul and the legislature refused to raise taxes on corporations and the wealthiest earners in order to close the city's budget gap. Here to talk about that and much more is the public advocate of the city of New York, Jumaane Williams. Good evening. Welcome back to the program. Always good to see you.
Good evening. Always a pleasure. Thanks. Good to be here.
Governor Hochul says that a tax increase is not going to happen. The city council speaker and various members of the council all say a property tax increase is a, quote, non-starter. Where does that leave the mayor? What kind of options does he have?
So, one, I just want to make sure we put this in perspective. There is a gap here that everyone agrees. It's a very, very large gap because of the accounting or non-accounting from the last term. And when that happens, somebody's going to pay. And the question is who and where. And so the options are very slim. I hope that the council and others can work together. I'd love to be a part of that to try to find some efficiencies in government. We have to do that. I have a feeling there still may be a gap. And the options that the city can do are either cut services to the bone, raise property taxes, or some of the options is either raise revenue or cut. And when you cut services and benefits, somebody pays. And so they try to talk about it like nobody's going to pay if we don't raise tax on the wealthy, but they will. So I think folks should be angry about what was proposed. I always want to make sure people are angry at the right people. And I believe folks should be angry at Kathy Hochul, who has said that she won't even entertain taxing the wealthy. And when she talks about it, she speaks as if taxing the wealthy means taxing everybody. And it just doesn't. And so the choice is, are we going to raise revenue from the 33,000 wealthiest folks in New York, or are we going to raise the revenue or cut services from everybody else? And that's really what we're boiling down to.
Part of what the governor has said is also, even if I gave you a tax increase, what would you use it for? The idea being that if you bring her a proposal like universal child care, she might be able to sort of write a check or find the money from some other source without resorting to new revenue, right?
So I think that's a fair question. I get worried when people say that we're not even going to entertain this, because we might need to. But quite frankly, if there's a gap that exists, it's a little over $5 billion, and the governor says, here's $5 billion, it's all gravy. It's good. That makes sense. We also know that the city pays more to Albany than we get back. Now, the state is a creature. We're a creature of the creature, so sometimes it's going to happen. It's hard to continue to maintain that when there's such a large gap. And so what we're saying is you have to provide more tools to us. And so the tools that we have are very painful, and they're going to hurt somebody. The taxes, as you know better than a lot of folks, the property tax system now is inequitable. It hurts black and brown homeowners. And we can't allow this type of tax hike to occur when people are losing their homes through deed theft and foreclosure. So we need Governor Hochul to open up the toolbox so we can look at some more tools.
The controller, Mark Levine, says that the city is facing multiple expenses that need to be controlled. That whether there's a tax increase, whether there's not a tax increase, there are some programs. City FEPS was one he mentioned. The Carter cases that pay money for special education. The amount paid out in claims every year for police misconduct, medical malpractice in the city hospitals, and other kind of expenses are expenses that are increasing so quickly, we'll never be able to catch up, and we'll have a deficit year after year.
So one, we definitely have to make government more efficient. We do have to look at some of these programs. City FEPS gets a little wonky, but it is increasing at a rate that we should have accounted for and did not. But what we want to make sure we're doing is we're looking at these programs, but not cutting the services that are needed, because it is much more expensive to have someone in a shelter versus at home. It's much more expensive to provide some kind of preventative care than to have someone in a hospital. And so we just want to make sure that we're not penny wise and pound foolish. But we do have to look at these efficiencies. We have to look at everything. And my point is, we just need the governor to say, here are some more tools. Because everyone who's furious is correct. Trying to balance this on the back of black and brown homeowners in particular. And I'm someone who helped sue to try to reform these tax reforms, and the then mayor actually booted us out of court. But we've been working on this for a very long time. We've also been talking about revenue raises for a very long time. There's a whole host of revenue raises that we can look forward to. But we need a governor that's willing to do that and stop pretending that the ones that we're pointing out are going to hurt everybody, because it's just not a true statement.
We're only a couple of months into this new administration. At the inauguration, you said that you'd spent most of your career pushing back on city policies, and you were looking forward to having a chance to finally push forward. Is that happening as far as you're concerned?
I think so. I think with this administration, you have an administration that believes in the things that I've been pushing for a long time. I thought we had that with the prior administration, and we didn't. So, you know, the mayor has been talking about things that I believe in since he was at 1%. So he didn't change because it became popular. He kind of helped push the change. So that looks a lot different, even if there's probably at some point going to be pushback, there's going to be tension. It's different when you're working with a mayor who actually believes a thing and wants to accomplish it. And I know governing is hard, and so I'll be very happy to continue to push forward with someone who believes the things that I do as well.
The mayor signed an executive order creating what are called rental rip-off hearings. Those are going to happen in the next couple of weeks, where people can complain about problems they have with their landlords. And I thought about you immediately, because every year you put out a worst landlords list, and at the top of the list every year is the New York City Housing Authority. Should the mayor maybe focus on that?
So I was a little perturbed when I heard the news that NYCHA was not going to be, as going to be invited. So I actually made a phone call to find out what's going on. It turns out the administration said that the focus is on HPD policy, which doesn't control NYCHA. However, NYCHA residents are still invited, and there will be NYCHA representatives available. So folks will be invited. And yes, we do have to spend some time on NYCHA and making sure that they get the funding they need and is managed more correctly. Unfortunately, our HPD policies don't control NYCHA.
Okay, we're going to leave it there for now. Thank you so much for coming by. Great talking with you, and we'll as we get closer to the budget, I hope we can chat again.
Absolutely.
All right, that's going to do it for tonight's show. Thanks so much for watching, and have a great evening. We'll see you next time inside City Hall.
That's a look at some of what's in the papers this morning. You done with the sports section?
Today's story is about the latest chapter for a beloved local business.
It's a beautiful day with temperatures in the 60s, but showers are expected in the next hour.
In a city that's always on the go, it's important to stop to hear the stories that connect us.
The news that matters to New Yorkers. That's what brings us together. That's Mornings on One.
Weekdays starting at 6.
You might think Spectrum is just for your home, but Spectrum is seamless connectivity everywhere. It's the network making the other networks sweat. Connectivity from an actual internet company, because internet is what you actually use your phone for. It's way more than 5G. With Spectrum One, it's 5G and fiber-powered internet, seamlessly combined for the fastest wireless speeds. Don't believe us? Ask this guy. He's one of millions who already know. Oh yeah, and this guy too. Turns out people like their mobile from a seamless connectivity company. That's why Spectrum is the country's fastest growing mobile provider. Spectrum One. It's only the seamless connection you love at home. Everywhere you go. It's only everything.
There's nothing quite like the feeling of going to the theater. On Stage celebrates that excitement every